When you're waiting for the right time, I can personally tell you the number of things that I have waited for or like waited to do or to start on, just waiting for the right time to get doing it. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm just like, gosh, I wasted so much time waiting. You know what I mean? And that's like a sign of like patience working against you. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm patient enough to wait to like do things the proper way, the right way. And then it ends up becoming, I start procrastinating because I don't know if now is the right time. And then, you just keep on pushing it back and back and back. And now I'm like, I'm just going to start. You know what I mean? No matter how low budget or like, no matter how bad I am at it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like if I had started doing this podcast maybe earlier, I'd be way further ahead with it. You know what I'm saying? I'd be a lot more advanced at it. I'd be a lot, I wouldn't have so much behind. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't feel so behind on it. And now I'm grateful that I started this podcast and that I have it on file. Like I have it for this amount of time, you know what I'm saying? And it was just a matter of starting it. I feel like I'm really capable of sticking to stuff. I am dedicated to what it is that I'm passionate about and what I like to do. But it's just a matter of like, I always feel like I want to do things right. I always want to do things the right way, the perfect way, the way that it's like, that gets you the most attention or that gets you the most views or gets you like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it feels like a copycat game. You know what I'm saying? I have to copycat the biggest podcasts and what they do because that's how they get views. You know what I mean? Like they have the blueprint already. All you have to do is just copy them. But copying them costs money and time and like all of these extra features that I don't have. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, I don't have like a huge following, you know what I mean? I'm making the podcast so that way I could like reach out and talk to people. And then it's like, how do you grow your audience from there? And then you post on social media, you do this, you do that, right? Like you use the internet as a tool to reach out and then that's not enough. And then it feels like, only people who are really successful can make things. And that's just not true, but you just have to start at the bottom and hopefully as you continue to work and you start to build and make episode after episode, who knows? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that everybody is going to like this podcast. Probably a lot of people don't, but probably, I'll be honest right now. I don't really listen to this podcast as much as I should. I mean, I listen to it because I have to edit it and stuff. You know what I'm saying? But like, I'd be lying if I said that like in my free time, I sat down and I really listened to this, to all of my podcasts, But I do remember all of them. I remember kind of what I talk about. I remember my first episode. I remember my intro. I remember, bits and pieces of each and every single one. So I've already spoke it. It's already out there. You know what I mean? So it's a part of me and I understand it. But, what is it about what I'm saying that connects with people that makes them want to grow? And it's just like, it's just a matter of trying. I'm trying to put my thoughts out there. And for better or for worse, you know what I'm saying? I feel like, in the grand scheme of things, I'm just a raindrop in the ocean. You know what I'm saying? So this podcast may never be super duper popular, but it's just a way for me to express or get my ideas out there. And really, it's just for future me. I can't wait until I'm like 70 or 60 or, when I get really old and then I'm like, oh, let me see what I was talking about when I was in my 20s. And then like re-listening to it and being like, man, I was an idiot. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's going to be so funny. That's going to be such a good time. And I'm really happy about like, the investment that this podcast will like eventually lead to, you know what I'm saying? And I guess that's true for a lot of people, you know what I mean? You look at the top podcasts, like you look at Joe Rogan and it's kind of like he has so many hours worth of episodes and stuff that it's like, damn, like he's really he's never going to go back and like re-listen to all of those podcasts. Like it's physically impossible. But it's not about that for him per se. It's about like talking to interesting people, and that week or that day when he releases it, it gets to any number of people who are interested in that subject or who are interested in him, and then they learn something from it. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like you always look for the present, you always look for tomorrow and the next episode and the next person to interview, right? And that's the interesting part of it. That's the cool thing about it. The cultural moment of it is that, like, I guess kind of right now in this moment, you're absorbing it and you're appreciating it and you're taking it in, you know? And I guess in a different way, this podcast is more so for me, and it's kind of seen as a time capsule. And maybe over time, it'll grow and become something different. It will become something like that. You know what I'm saying? But my point being is that, like, if I had wasted or like waited for the right time to start this, you know, I would have never started. I would have never upgraded, or I never would have tried to find new ways to start a podcast. You know what I mean? It's you're always going to wait for the right thing, you know? I'm sure that I could get like a way better microphone, you know what I mean? But we're slowly building it up, you know what I mean? The quality difference from like what's the quality difference between like a $10,000 microphone and the microphone I'm using now? I'm sure it's like there's a good difference in between the two, you know what I mean? You can clearly tell which microphone is better, but I imagine that the margin isn't as wide as one might think. You know what I'm saying? So I guess there are any number of other factors as well. It's like you have like a controlled environment where you can talk and stuff, and you know, there's no like outside stuff like bothering it. So I don't know, it's a little weird, but again, you have to think to yourself, like, what are you really waiting for? What is it that's stopping you from trying anything? You know what I'm saying? I understand like finances. Like if you want to try something but it costs money, then it's like you have to build up towards it. You know what I mean? You have to work to live, so to speak. You know what I mean? I don't know anybody who lives to work. They really like to work to live, you know? So it's kind of a build-up, right? You put in your hours at work, and then you can finally splurge on yourself. You can go on that vacation or that adventure, or you can spend this time for yourself, you know, buy that thing that you really like. And it kind of feeds into this capitalism where it's like you have to buy your way for it. But when it comes to stuff like this, like starting a podcast or like following your New Year's resolutions, it's like, what's stopping you? What is stopping you from just starting? What is stopping you from just really putting yourself into consideration, what you really love and what you really enjoy, you know? And the truth is, there really is nothing stopping you. It's just a matter of putting your mind to it and saying, this is what I'm doing. I'm committing to this. And if nothing else, if I fail, at least I know that I tried it. You know what I mean? That's the thing, is that you always want to feel like, at least I tried, you know? So for something like this, you know, like this podcast, it's not as simple as doing it for 1 year or 6 months. You know what I mean? Like, you always want to see that, oh, I've been doing this show 2 times a week for 6 months and I don't have any viewers, or I don't have any listeners. Well, it's like, well, keep it going. Like, you haven't fully tried. You haven't put in all of your effort. There's always a way to try or edit or to try again or to do something different, to expand what you're trying to do, you know? And I guess that's kind of that's the hard part about it, is that, like, you don't want to invest so much time in something when you haven't been doing the right work for it. You know what I'm saying? So it would be like It would be like if you were trying to become a doctor, but you didn't go to like a proper medical school. It's like you're really smart and you can become a doctor, right? Like you probably learned everything, but you didn't go to like, I mean, obviously I'm kind of like, what I'm trying to get at here is that like, if I tried to learn outside of medical school to become a doctor, you put in all of that work to try to get your, all of that time and days and weeks and months and years that you put into like learning to become a doctor, but you don't get your doctorate. So like you're just as smart as any other doctor. You can do all of the tests and you can basically do everything, but you're not a real doctor because you didn't go to a school. It's like, darn it, I put in all of that work and I'm like really good at it, but because I don't have my doctorate degree, I can't be like a real doctor. You know what I'm saying? Like that's sort of a lame example because everybody who wants to become a doctor, like there's a pathway to like go to school for it. But what I'm trying to say is that like you don't want to invest your time into something or work on something and not have it be the right way. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like it's like when you see one of those life hacks on like social media or like on the internet and stuff, like a video, and they show you like, hey, you've been doing this thing wrong the whole time, and you're like, darn it, you're like, that is so convenient. It's like if I knew how to do that, or like if I knew that sooner, I wouldn't have wasted. You know what I mean? Like I've been putting all my time into doing it this way, but there's actually an easier way. You know what I mean? Like there's another way to do it that's better, and now you're kind of like, darn, like I don't know why I didn't think of that or how I didn't figure that out or know what was going on there. You know what I mean? So that's because it makes you feel like you wasted your time. It makes it feel like, oh man, I've been wasting my time doing this one thing, but I should have been doing this other thing. I should have been focused on this aspect of what I've been investing my time into, you know? And so how do you encourage yourself to get started? How do you encourage yourself to say that like, I'm done waiting and I'm just going to try it, you know? Even if I fail, even if it's not as great as what I want it to be, you do the best you can with what you have, you know? I saw a very inspirational video of these kids that are like, they're in Africa, I think, and they're like choreographers or like filmmakers or whatever, and they just recreate trailers or they do like dances and stuff. And I thought to myself, I was like, they're doing it. Like, no matter what I think about it, right? Like, is it as great at quality as like the official trailer or like another like, like another dancer? I was going to say choreographer. That was the word I was looking for. Like another choreographer with like a professional dance studio and they like have like the class around them and everybody's like cheering them on. Like, is it any better or is it any worse? And it's like, whether what I think about it is irrelevant. It's the fact that they're doing it. They're putting it out there. You know what I mean? They're executing what they want to try, what they want to do. And they're doing the best they can with what they have. And when I see that, I'm like, darn it, I'm holding myself back because I'm worried about quality. These kids are putting themselves out there. They don't care about the quality. They just care about putting it out there, having fun with it. And they're just kids. Like, they're young enough and brave enough to try, so why shouldn't I? Who cares? Who really cares? I'm not going to regret trying something. I'm going to be like, hey, I learned something from that. You know? I learned how to improve my podcast. I learned how better to improve social media and make it what I want it to be, you know? And more oftentimes than not, we wait because we don't know what's going to happen. So if I waited for like the start of, because I started this podcast in 2022. So if I waited until January of 2023 to get started, then chances are I probably would have procrastinated even more. I was like, it's the new year, maybe I should wait, you know what I mean? Or like, you make any number of excuses for yourself. And it was August, and I was like, I don't have any excuses to say no to this. I just want to try it. And here we are, years later, two years later, something like that, and I have no plans on stopping this. Just getting started. And we're like 259 episodes in, and I'm really happy that I have 259 episodes, because now I have like so much for people to listen to, and they can decide for themselves, hey, I don't really like this isn't really good. Or they can say, you know what, let me listen to all of his listen to him talking about different movies, or talking about any number of different topics that he does, and like, oh, I relate to that topic, like when I talked about when you're playing badminton. You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody's like, oh, I just learned how to play. And that's exactly how I feel too. And I love the game. And that's cool. That's fun. And let me listen to another one, right? Like, it's cool to have that in your back pocket, to have the quantity of episodes, so that way it has so many people to, any number of topics, so that people like gravitate towards it. You know what I'm saying? And that's cool. I also did the When You're Whispering podcast episode. That was really nice, because people who like kind of like a quieter vibe, or they enjoy ASMR type of a video, or of like a audio episode, like, that's really sweet. They get that, they enjoy that. So it's always cool to kind of have those kind of episodes, those kind of diverse episodes, where you can kind of put them out there and people can listen to it and enjoy it and see how it works for them. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I honestly don't know how to express or maybe like connect with people who wait because they're afraid, because on the one hand, I understand the fear holding you back. But on the other hand, it's like, then just fail, Fail to whatever you feel is failing, right? Like, there are some failures that take years to get back on course. And I don't know how to convince someone to be brave enough to take that chance and to risk it all. You know what I mean? To truly gamble on their lives and just be like, yeah, man, you failed. It is what it is. It's like, no, I could have waited a little bit more. I could have given myself more time. But now that I failed, it's like, well, you always try to see the bright side of it. It's like, you failed, but now you're not starting from scratch. You're not starting from zero. Now you're starting from a place of understanding. Now you know what it's like to fail a business, or you know what it's like to fail at this thing or the other thing, or a relationship or whatever, right? Like, now you're not technically starting at the bottom anymore. You're in a new place, you're on a higher ground than when you actually began, because now you know how to climb the mountain, or to get up again. You know what I'm saying? But starting from the bottom is always scary. It's always difficult. It's never an easy. It's never easy to risk it, but there's great reward when you risk it and you try, and you know that you're in that place of, I'm trying and it's working. I'm doing it. I'm actually in this place of like doing what I love, and I enjoy the routine of it. You know what I mean? What can I what's a maybe maybe like the routine of cooking, right? Like if you're a professional chef, like Gordon Ramsay or whoever, right? Like there's a cooking routine. You know, you have to get into the routine of cooking this dish or cooking this meal or cooking the items on this menu or whatever. And there's like a you're good at the one at everything, you know what I'm saying? And you have to get into the routine of I have to turn up the temperature here and do this and do that. Like there's a set routine for everything. And if you don't love or appreciate that routine, then it's kind of like, ah man, it's hard for anybody to be like jump for joy at that idea to risk their time, their effort, their money, and I guess their peace of mind for something that they don't feel passionate about, you know? So that's why it's kind of like trying out so many different things is so important so that way you can figure out what you're truly passionate about. What are you willing to do routine for over and over and over again? What are you willing to do, you know? Basketball players, they have a routine. They have a gym routine, a playing schedule. They have like their whole season year mapped out of like, this is how you can train. This is how you can do this and do that. And this is how you can have some time off, or this is when you can do that or this or this or that or that and this. And I thought to myself the other day, I was like, because I saw LeBron James and his son playing together. And I was kind of like, man, I never really thought or put two and two together of like, LeBron James has to be an inspiration on the court and still be a father at home when he's playing like an away game. So he has to be, he probably wasn't always like, I mean, he was, what I'm trying to get at here is that like, he had to be great at basketball and then he still had to be like a father on top of it. You know what I mean? Like the routine of like, I have to go out there and play this game and come home to be a father and stuff like that. And sometimes he's away for a long time doing away games and then he comes back to the home game and then he has to move his family. I was just kind of thinking of like that basketball routine. I know it kind of feels like he's the top player, he's the top guy, and he makes it look easy, but it's just that like he knows the routine and he loves the routine and he's gotten into it. And it definitely has come with a lot of sacrifice to be the best, to be that top guy. He probably had to sacrifice not being around when his kids got into trouble or something, or to always be there. But he's always kind of like had this presence about him, this inspiration for his kids to pursue basketball, you know? And that's a joy. That's a big accomplishment and a sense of pride that like, man, I was good at this sport and it inspired my sons to pursue it as well. And now we're here in the league together and it's amazing, right? Like that's a cool thing. That's something that is, he found his passion and he stuck to it, you know? But I guess it's different for him, huh? He didn't really wait to play basketball. He just played basketball in high school and then the league kind of drafted him. They got him quick. They got him early. How does that doesn't happen anymore now, but how do you realistically like, I guess it isn't equatable. I guess it's more so what I was talking about is just that like, it's more so the routine of basketball is also draining. It's difficult and it's hard, but every single time the season comes around, LeBron James is on the court and he plays and he's the number one guy everybody looks to for everything. You know what I'm saying? So what are you willing to do that's just as, to be as great as that? You know what I mean? What are you trying to accomplish. Is it to do that? Then you got to work for it. You got to know the routine of it and understand that, like, oh, this is when he does this, so I'm going to copy that. You know, it's all about that routine. And when it comes to this podcast, to the routine of this, it's just always about knowing the schedule. The schedule is very important because it just lets you know that no matter what, on this day, an episode is going up. No matter what comes my way, it's getting up there. And you have to try your hardest to do it. You know, oftentimes, sometimes I'll like postpone it, or like I'll upload an episode earlier so that way it can like fit on like a holiday or like another day of the week, right? Like if it's like a Halloween episode, I'll like upload like a special episode for that day. But then on the Thursday that I usually would upload, I don't. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes I move around the schedule so that way it can kind of fit to what I'm talking about. But that's not the point. The point is, stop waiting. You can just try. If nothing else, you can try. If nothing else, you can just say, I really gave it my best. I really gave myself a shot at this, and I failed, and it didn't yield the benefits that I was looking for. It wasn't something that I was amazing at, or I was top tier at, or like it was a routine that I got lazy at, or I didn't enjoy, and I didn't like having to do this aspect of it, or I didn't like this part of it, or I feel like I was really bad at this part. You know, you figure out all of these little bits and pieces about yourself and figure out that, like, but what I do enjoy is, you know, painting. I love that the time it takes for me to finish a painting. I love the time it takes for me to figure out what color I'm going to use or how I'm going to make it look a certain way. I love the way that it gives me freedom to express and try different colors and different shades and to make another shape or to do this or to do that, right? Like, you start putting it into that way and start realizing things about yourself, things that you enjoy, you know? And that's kind of why I made like the second half of this podcast about like talking about TV shows and movies, because I like watching TV shows and movies. And I feel like entertainment is a happy medium to reach people. I feel like it's a good way to like, oh, hey, I like this movie. Oh, me too. That's cool. I didn't like that movie. Well, I liked it. What didn't you like about it? I didn't like this, that, then this. Well, I liked it because of that I didn't really like that either, but I like this part. You know what I mean? Like, there's discourse there. There's plenty of back and forth and give and take and what people like, what people don't like. So that's kind of why I chose those two things. Is like, one of them was just about talking about whatever, you know, talking about certain ideas or certain things that are happening in my life, or, you know, and seeing if they can relate to anybody else. But then it was also about seeing, oh, this is a movie that I enjoy and that I watched recently and I liked it. What did you guys think? You know, simple. But I want to feel at a place where I'm not holding back because I want to do things right anymore. You know, there's a difference between waiting to do something and, you know, little goals to get to where you want to be. So if I wanted to release this podcast like perfectly, meaning I have like a full budget studio and I have like the perfect microphone and the perfect cameras, like multi-camera setup so that way you can see it at different angles, the perfect phone to like release it, and the perfect editing software system and like editors and like producers and like you know, ads to run so that way I can make money off the podcast, like all of that, you know what I mean? All of that together. There are steps and goals to achieve that, you know what I mean? This is how much it costs for a studio. Bang. This is what I want to do. you start building it up and you work towards it, right? There's a difference between that. But there's another difference in just waiting for the right time and it never gets there because you keep stalling, You don't work towards your goal. You're just waiting for the right time to get started on those small goals, as opposed to working on achieving those little goals, working on, I need to get this audio mixer or this, whatever you need for like a podcast or a show or whatever, right? And then you start waiting and waiting and waiting instead of working towards something, making realistic goals for yourself, How do you get out of that? How do you start just trying? And for me, it was just a matter of put the camera in front of you, talk into the microphone, talk. And that was it, It didn't matter that I didn't have a huge studio behind me. I had a green screen and that was enough, right? That was the idea. And early on, I had like a bullet points of what I wanted to talk about. And I hated that because you could clearly see me looking at the paper throughout the video. And I was like conscious about like people watching the podcast and then looking at me, looking at the podcast, looking at my bullet points. And then like, I would feel like people would feel like my podcasts were scripted and not coming from my own thoughts and feelings. And eventually, once I stopped recording myself, I started being able to like be a lot more loose and not worry about like the camera on me and worry about like feeling the need to look at the camera to like connect with the audience. Instead, just like talk, and then people will be able to do whatever, So little things like that. But anyways, if you're waiting for the right time to get started, you're always going to find a reason to never start. You're always going to procrastinate. You're always going to hold back, and you shouldn't. You should get started, or you should work towards your goals. Baby steps, but at least you're working towards it. So to anybody out there who is like looking for a sign or finds like, what should I'm waiting for the right time to get started. Like, this is your sign. This is your opportunity. This is your moment to say to yourself, I can just get started, and it doesn't matter how poor in quality it is. At least I'm trying. And the worst that happens is nobody sees it, right? Because like, if nobody sees it, then it feels like, I failed. Nobody saw it. But that's the great thing, is that like you tried, you started, and nobody saw it. So it's not like a big deal, right? You could delete it and move on with your life, right? But then the best thing is that like you get started and then people start seeing it. People start looking at it and start going like, hey, I got one listener, one viewer. Perfect. Let's see if we can get 2. Let's double it. Let's see if we can get 4, 5, 6. You know what I mean? Like how much higher can we go? Let's try again. And then me personally, I've never hated on somebody for like their oldest video. I think I talked about this before, but I've never hated on somebody for like a video they posted like 4 years ago. I'm like, that was 4 years ago. Like, if you missed your chance to like hate, you know what I mean? You missed your chance to hate on them. And now they have like 1 million subscribers or whatever. They have like 100,000 listeners. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here, right? Like, what's the point of me hating them or like feeling a type of way about what they're doing from the past when all that matters is their next video? Is their next video as garbage as that one from 4 years ago? And oftentimes, it isn't. They improved. They upgraded. They got better. And you can do the same. You can obviously do the same. I can do the same. So stop waiting. Just get started or learn about what it is that you want to do, who you want to be. That's the important part. That's what I really want to leave this podcast end it with. You know what you want, you know who you are, and you know what it's going to take. Can you Just get started. Stop waiting. Stop waiting. So, thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.